Dirk's election coverage. Forget this panel. Who cares about this? I want to see a shot of the Undertaker from the Unger world. Can I see it? The Hunger Games! There it is! We're in the middle of the Hunger Games!
Reporting for duty.
All right. Oh, it's a good thing he's not on an Unger strike.
And I mean duty spelled D-O-O-D-Y.
All right. So, Brian, look, we got a lot to do in this hour. I'm going to tell you about the protest that we're doing.
We got a lot to do. It's so made up. Like we're literally vamping until polls close, but we're framing it. We got a lot to
papers and graphics.
No, are you kidding me? There's so many great stories in the so-called real show, like 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Not real, regular show, our regular time, right? I have so many stories. I don't think we're going to get through them. There was this story today. I'm just going to do it right now.
Don't
right?
spoil it.
Okay. Trump said that he loves his kids, Ivanka, Donald Jr., Eric, and Tiffany to a lesser extent.
No, he didn't.
He said it!
Did he really
I
say
swear
that?
to God he said it. Okay.
You say he said one of them he loves to a lesser extent. Tune in at 3 to find out which.
I'm going to leave you in suspense.
Is Tiffany the daughter of Marla Maples?
Yes.
That's right.
And Tiffany is the one who did not kiss him at the convention.
Yes.
That's right.
That explains everything.
But
Yeah, at the debate.
there is strife
You're
there.
right. Yeah.
And where has Marla Maples been throughout this entire campaign?
Another good question. Maybe she's been on an Unger strike.
She has been sworn to that she's abiding by her non-disclosure, non-compete, can't talk, and cannot comment.
That would be
agreement.
hilarious if there was a non-compete in a marriage document. No, really. If we get divorced, you cannot marry any other megalomaniac, fake billionaire real estate developer in New York.
Okay, just for the record, he said it in the context of the work they've done on the campaign. I'm very proud because Don and Eric and Ivanka, and to a lesser extent because she just got out of school, out of college, but Tiffany is also been
To a lesser extent.
Thanks for keeping him honest,
Yeah.
Ben.
So once again, it's
So vote Trump.
That was
inartful ability to express himself.
Okay, I read things really quickly in the 1 hour break that I had, okay? All right? Get off my ass! Now Brian's going to do this awesome thing just for the members, which is amazing in a little bit, tytnetwork.com/join. Like these nightmare scenarios. Him and Ida Rodriguez, it's an awesome combo. Maybe we should do a show like that. Okay. But before you go do that, give me first, and in this hour, we're going to do Senate races and how things are going. Is Rice Feingold going to win? I'm in a heart attack over that. Okay. Like this election. Insanity. Give me your general thoughts on it first.
I think that the word is, and this word has been applied to just about every segment of our culture this year, disruption. Disruption, disruption, disruption. Disruption of the political process, disruption of the journalistic process, disruption of the religious. Everything has been disrupted. Whether Trump had any foresight into that, I doubt it. But I just think we are in a revolution that is going on in each segment of our culture. And technology is driving it. The media is, everyone needs to redefine their paradigm. And I just don't know what Wednesday is going to end. I think it's the beginning of something much bigger than any of us really thinks. There's no real return to a status quo.
God, I love that. I think that is 1,000% right. But the only problem is, Brian, you're going to get me to stop saying people don't get it. Because I think people are increasingly getting it. Now, I know you're part of us and Rebel headquarters and strong, but I remember the days when strong progressives didn't often get it, right? But I really think that we're in the middle of a disruption, the likes of which we haven't seen before. So, we already had the Golden Dawn in Greece, which is right wing, but we also had I
think Golden Dawn was Die Hard.
No, it was Die Harder.
No.
Golden Dawn.
It was Red Dawn.
Red Dawn. Oh, I see. And then we had the far left party, which actually took power in Greece. We've had the far right parties take power in Eastern Europe. Everybody's saying, and we've been talking about it.
Close.
Yeah, we've been talking about it here for the whole week. Throw a brick through the establishment window. We don't care what happens. Then, of course, I think the shot heard across the world was Brexit. And so there was worries that this election was going to be our Brexit, maybe a Trexit. Okay, sorry.
Is there a studio audience I don't know about?
Have you trademarked that? Yeah. Is there a little R with a circle around it or a TM or something?
Let me pull a Jeb Bush here. Please clap. So anyway, but I think that Brian's 1,000% right. It's not just Trump. It's of course Bernie Sanders. More importantly, Bernie Sanders. And people keep saying like, well, Hillary Clinton got more votes in the primary, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. There's no real, uprising here. No, look, she did. I understand that. I thought they closed too many polling stations on Rhode Island, Arizona. We talked about that earlier. But she got more votes. I understand. Well, that's not the argument. The argument is a guy who almost no one in America knew outside of people who cared deeply about politics, who was the most liberal senator who calls himself a socialist, rose up from almost nothing in the polls and closed a 60-point lead on a woman who has the biggest name recognition I've ever seen in politics, and the entire Democratic Party establishment behind her. If a guy like that,
unlimited money.
If a guy like that can close the lead and get 46% of the vote, and then Trump beats 16 other Republicans, meanwhile, and Brian's right again on the broader point, it's not just politics. Look at what we're doing here, right? Right now, we talked earlier about how let's beat TV today, right? Let's get bigger people, more people watching us. And you got to understand something. Yes, tonight we probably will not pass CNN in concurrent live viewers, right? But we will. We've already passed at least a quarter of the cable stations. So like that in the old days, an online stream being larger than a cable show, inconceivable, unheard of, no way. If I showed you the graphs that I see business-wise, what's happening to TV, so above 65-year-olds are actually watching TV a little bit more, like 2% more. Everything else is below the line, below zero. And for 18 to 24-year-olds, the graph goes like this, boom, right? They lost 40% of their 18 to 24-year-old audience in 1 year.
ESPN just had its worst month ever for subscriber loss, and there's no reason to think that next month won't be as bad.
Yeah, and I think we can lay the blame squarely on Colin Kaepernick. On his knees.
John Idarola with a relevant sports reference. The pronunciation was right. Everything was great. You know he plays soccer. Well done.
Okay.
Real quick. So going back to politics being disrupted, in the last hour we had Nomiki Konst on the show, who is a political analyst, and she made a really good point about the DNC specifically and how the way the DNC operated during this election and the consequences that they paid as a result of that, I think is going to shake things up for them moving forward. There are certain things that they are not going to get away with doing in the future, right?
So, yeah, that's exactly right. And so that's why before Brian leaves, I wanted to ask you the next part of that question, right? So we can go on and on about all the disruption in different, arenas, but when it comes to politics, let's assume for a second here that Hillary Clinton, as the polling indicates, will win tonight. And I'm less certain of that than everyone else. And, the results start coming in at 6 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Eastern, and then the big one's 8 o'clock. We're going to cover that here for you. But let's assume Hillary Clinton wins, right? And after the election is called, we're going to have a lot of progressives on here. Adam Green, Robert Scheer. Oliver Stone wanted to join us. He sent me an apology note that he couldn't join you guys because he's in South America right now. He said, what a depressing election, but I can't wait to be with you guys in the next election. Julian Assange might join us later. Okay, so all those progressives, I want to ask you, Brian, what do you think happens next? If Hillary Clinton wins, do we just get, you're saying we're not going to go back to the normal, we're not going to go back to status quo, so what do you think happens?
I think she serves one term, and I think that, as you intimated earlier, I think we, ironically, are right back at Bernie Sanders. We come back to these same themes that are never really going to go away. I think they're here forever. This idea of an economy that benefits the most people at the same time. I think we're going to have to somehow make those ideas thrive with the right person who is in office. It may be mismatched at this moment, but I think she'll serve one term. I think that the field is wide open now for someone to come in and take those ideas that even Bernie Sanders' ideas and turn them into a right-wing cause. The idea of, because that's what we've seen, this topsy-turvy flip-flopping of political beliefs and value systems and allegiances are all kind of mixed up now in this giant potpourri of crap. And I think the field is wide open in 4 years, and someone could sweep in and...
So you mean she'll lose to a Republican, or she'll She won't even run again or challenged? I mean, obviously you don't know, but I mean,
I think
like
that
in your head, what's that?
In my head, the right Republican can beat her in 4 years.
Yes. So the thing that I think makes it really interesting is obviously whenever someone comes in and, as you say, disrupts things, we wonder, is this emblematic of a trend? Is this repeatable? And I definitely think that there could be another Bernie Sanders. I mean, I've said many times that it sucks that we have this once-in-a-lifetime possibly candidate of Bernie Sanders going against a once-in-a-lifetime representative of the Democratic establishment that the Democrats don't typically have. They don't typically have one candidate that everybody knows is likely to become the candidate. It's usually a more diverse field. And so it took the most supported establishment Democrat to fight off Bernie Sanders.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it.
But for 4 years from now and 8 years from now, there isn't another Hillary Clinton waiting in the wings. There isn't another obvious Bernie Sanders waiting in the wings other than possibly Elizabeth Warren. And I don't think she's as like Bernie as some people think. There's also not another Donald Trump waiting in the wings. I mean, there could be, but there are no obvious ones that we can point to and say, oh, in 4 years it'll be them. And all three of those people that I've mentioned are old people, and they won't necessarily be around in 4 or 8 years. In the same way.
I just want to give this quick coda, is that I see the journalism and electronic media will never, ever remedy itself, which gives much more value and places way more importance on what you are doing in here every day. Because I believe that train will never, ever slow down. It's only speeding up. Politics is driven by self-interest. News is driven by money. Or both are driven by self-interest and money. They're never, ever going to return to a more traditional journalism will never get back to its roots
Purity.
in reporting and purity. Thank you. So this right here will be crucial, critical. You will only grow. Look where you'll be in 4 years. My God, you'll be so important to the process. We don't know what the truth is anymore. We are so fractured. We don't know where to look. All of the fake news sites, all the groups that are creating news stories in our news streams that all look like they're the same, and everyone is basically choosing whatever truth they want to forge their identity. It will be critical that groups that like the Young Turks just continue to forge ahead. And I think we're in real trouble. I really do. I think we're in a new age, and Wednesday will be there's no resting on Wednesday, no matter what happens. I just think that it's incumbent upon media, someone in media, to keep just searching, digging, investigating, and now analyzing, doing the real work that journalism has stopped doing.
So I agree with you so thoroughly that I'm only going to add one small thing to it. I really think that that you're so right about the status quo is over. We're done with that. And I know that the establishment won't see it that way. And if Hillary Clinton prevails, they're going to want to go back to the good old days. Well, okay, we're back to sanity. Now let's get another Bush in here, and we'll go back to the same old games we've been playing. And they're not going to be able to. But I give that, and I think Hillary Clinton will get primaried from the left. And I think that, and I actually believe that an Elizabeth Warren type of person, not necessarily her, but someone like her, or maybe her, will come up and beat Hillary Clinton in the primaries. Because I think people are so tired of the establishment. They're gonna, if they do today, they're gonna hang on by their fingernails, and then that's it. But the reason why that's so important is because if you don't do that, it leaves the populist field to just the right wing. And that's a terrible idea, because populism is going to win. And so it should be the one from the left, not from the right. And to your point, Brian, Charles Krauthammer today talking on Fox News about how there's a civil war within the Republican Party, because are they going to go back to what conservatism meant? But, it was always a mirage. The voters actually never cared about, hey, let's do more trade deals. They never signed on to that. The Republican voters didn't do that, right? It's just what they were spoon-fed by the establishment, who gets paid by the same, multinational corporate interests, et cetera, whether it's in terms of advertising or it's in terms of campaign donations. All these assumptions about what a Republican meant, and Trump, turned that upside down. So what is the Republican Party after Trump, after today? No one knows. It's because it was a mirage in the first place. So once you break the status quo, there's a lot of things that are going to come out of that, and some are going to be great, right? Because we need that system broken, and some of them are going to be perilous.
Yeah.
So buckle up, everybody, for what's coming after this election. So don't forget the words of Brian Unger. Okay.
Yeah, and we. Nah, who gives a shit what I have to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And who gives a shit
curious.
really what I said?
No, you were good. I don't. Also, like, just something occurred to me, like with Brian talking about how I wasn't listening totally, but he seemed angry.
Wow, didn't know he had that fire in him.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
No, but how media is never going to look the same and is never going back, and so and it's one of my small issues with this program here is that everything's different, but we still have a desk and we still put on jackets and ties and so forth. And
I even switched into a dress shirt.
you did. You
I feel
switched
like,
your
I
dress
feel like you
shirt,
guys should just do the show shirtless.
By the way, I'm
Keep
the
it classy.
only person right now with a tie, so that was pretty blatant.
but I just feel like that look is like what's coming. Like we
Brian's?
should. Like,
I've
yeah, because
actually
it's
been
just
sent here by Vice. I should dial down my enthusiasm and my passion and speak in a more monotone, inexperienced way. But with a veneer.
right. Sure.
Ben, are you
I'm
suggesting
going
that
for
we
a
should
real
get some sun?
Williamsburg kind of passion right now. So maybe let me bring it down a little bit. But you guys know what I mean. We saw a transformative period in cable news and in all of news where money is just drive ratings, money. It's so corrupt, so infected, it can never, ever get back. I wonder what it's like to work for these folks because you're now just a tool. You believe, if you're an anchor or if you're a reporter in this system, you are being encouraged day in and every minute of the day to keep singing the refrain, pushing the narrative. They are addicted to narrative. They are addicted to drama. They want you to stick around, constantly running out of time on a 24-hour clock. How is that
Right,
possible?
totally, but
It just makes no sense, but they're constantly trying to get you to hang on to every quarter hour so they can keep driving up the ad rates. We're never going back. We're never
CNN
going
yesterday
back.
ran a ticker below of all the presidents, just in like in order, and then Thomas Jefferson. And then James Madison, hey man, we got it, man.
Literally, there's nothing going on, so we have to.
But we have to have something down there. We got it.
But the amazing thing is, there's a ton of things going on that they refuse to cover. And
No,
they think
there's
that
something happening in North Dakota.
Cover
Go to
climate
North Dakota.
change.
Yeah.
They will not cover what's happening in North
Right,
Dakota.
right.
They refuse to cover those issues because A, they think their audience is too dumb to understand or care about those issues,
Might be right.
and B, they think that those issues won't do well with ratings. And finally, C, let's keep it real. I mean, you go after the same companies that are advertising on your network, you're going to lose those advertisers.
Yeah.
So they say climate change isn't a sexy topic when the vast majority of Americans want to do something about climate change.
That's why you got to drive the news, and if you're going to, you should probably rent with 6th rental car. All right, guys. All right. We got to let Brian go. So, but he's staying here for the members, okay? So while we talk about the dry Senate races, Brian's going to do some funny stuff with Ida Rodriguez at tytnetwork.com/join is how you join. And then you go to tytnetwork.com/members live to watch. Both streams will be going on at the same time. Pick your poison, okay? And if you aren't getting it for some reason, you just refresh. But calmly, everybody do it at different times. By the way, if anything breaks,
Everybody
go to
refresh
Twitter.
at different times.
Because if everybody does it simultaneously, everything
It's
crumbles.
a tech
But
thing.
how do they know what other people are doing?
Okay, shush.
Half of you wait.
Which half?
The ones on this side now, the ones on this side wait.
At the Young Turks on Twitter. And Brian's also going to join us on the Young Turks on Fusion tomorrow.
Cannot wait. I'm so grateful that you asked me to come.
I'm super
you
excited.
guys are the smartest people in news. I'm so honored just to be here. So
Okay,
thank you.
relax.
All right.
I disagree,
No, I
I
really
disagree,
am.
but thank you. Let's keep this guy around.
No, I am drunk on tier 3 basic cable money. I don't need the job or the exposure. I'm fine. So my kissing up actually means that I really do admire you all and appreciate it. Ben, what? Why? What?
No,
Well,
I just think the way you're disrespecting of tier 3 basic cable.
Okay, so Young Turks on Fusion tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern. Anna, John, and Brian will be doing the show and obviously analyzing what happened after the election. Thank you, Brian. We really, really, really appreciate
you.
it. All right, and he's going to join you guys in the members only in about 2 minutes, okay? So now, as I previously promised, dry Senate races. John, go.
Okay, I'll try to make it not quite so dry. So we're going to be starting off with North Carolina. I'm not going to prompt for the pictures. You can just throw them up whenever you want. Where we have Richard Burr going up against Deborah Ross. This is one of the most competitive Senate races in the country right now. The 538 estimate is 50.7%. Oh, sorry. Actually, this is not one of the most competitive. 73.4% chance that Burr gets it. And the reason I think that's interesting in this particular case is that Richard Burr is the guy who not that long ago said, "Nothing made me feel better than seeing a magazine about rifles in a store with a picture of Hillary Clinton on it." And he said
Classy.
he was only disturbed because there wasn't a target over her face. And so this is
Jesus.
what we've unleashed in this country, and he is likely, unless things shift massively. Now, North Carolina is a state where we don't know exactly how things are going to shake out. But in the past few sets of polls, he has generally been up by a few points, and that's considered.
She's almost never led.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's never been anything but close. So, if there's been some misreading of the polls, and if Latino turnout is bigger in North Carolina, and if Hillary wins it by more than we think and wins it, then she could carry Ross over the finish line with her.
This is one of the states, and this is going to be a common refrain throughout this. It's difficult to know because it's the end of an election, and most races do get tighter near the end of an election. But this is also one of the ones where just around the same exact time that Comey came out with his "we might be reopening the case" thing, a lot of Senate races suddenly in the next few days became much closer.
Almost directly at that day.
Exactly, and almost universally worse for the Democrats. So thank you to the FBI for that.
Can I just say on that couple of notes? One, that's why I read you guys a story from The Guardian yesterday where some sources, some agents that work inside the FBI said, "Hey, look, man, FBI is Trump land." So he said, there's a lot of different opinions, of course. There's no love for Hillary Clinton in the building at all. But some people are really worried about Donald Trump, too. But the majority are Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. So they keep pushing and pushing and pushing for Comey to say things about Hillary Clinton. And as we saw, it was unjustified. The thing he did 11 days before the election where he said, "Oh, my God, there's new emails." Totally unjustified. It turns out there were no new emails. They were all repeats of emails that had gone over.
It didn't take that long to go through. And he hadn't read them. No one had read them when he said that. That's just why it was
absurd.
And so in the case of North Carolina, back to there, now if Hillary Clinton has been doing much better in North Carolina than Democrats have done in the past, right? Certainly Obama also began to do better in North Carolina, right? Before that, North Carolina was not in any way, shape, or form a swing state. It was solidly red.
It is demographically changing over time.
Yeah. So now it really is, it's a swing state. And so Hillary Clinton could win it. I mean, for a while, I thought her numbers looked better in North Carolina. They didn't in some traditional swing states. By the way, that's still true today. I think her numbers there look better than her numbers in Ohio, which is traditionally one of the most stereotypical swing state. So if she surges and she wins there, then obviously Ross, as Ben pointed out, might be in. But if you hear that Ross is in, that means Hillary Clinton has won.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's almost certainly
right.
That's almost certainly true.
Now, before we go on to the next one, though, I want to say a couple of interesting facts about the fight to control the Senate, which, of course, and I was just tweeting about this, extremely important because we right now, as we've had to keep repeating, we have a Supreme Court that's 4-4, and we have indications from some prominent Republicans that they might have no interest, despite all of their rhetoric about saying that the voters should choose, that they may never fill that spot. Which, by the way, if we have a repeat of 2000, would be extremely interesting if it goes to a 4-4 split Supreme Court. What happens after that? Nobody actually knows in America. But obviously very important to gain control of the Senate. Now, one of the interesting things about this cycle is that Republicans hold 24 of the 34 seats that are up for re-election, which means that no matter what, this is a bad year for them. It also means that in future cycles, bad years are coming for Democrats.
Yeah, 2018 is a catastrophe for Democrats.
It's a catastrophe, yeah. So of the 10 seats that Democrats are defending, none are in states that were won by either John McCain or Mitt Romney. So that added on to that previous fact means this is a good year for Democrats. 9 of the GOP-held seats are in states that President Obama won in either 2008 or 2012. Still, though, the Democrats have, at the most recent estimation, a 50.7% chance of taking over, which means that despite the fact that this is a uniquely situated good cycle for them, there are other things that are dragging them down.
So I have a macro point I want to make about the Democrats once John reads all the numbers for you. And we are going to go a little quicker through them in a second. But in the meanwhile, I really got to tell you two quick things that I forgot to mention earlier in the hour. One is, a lot of you are wondering where the protest is going to be tonight. Protest/party. It's at Hillary Clinton's headquarters at Jacob Javits Center in New York. I want to, Jesus or Ja'Cory, if you guys, whoever's back there, have the map, pull that up. It's on 37th Street and 11th Avenue that people are meeting up at 8 o'clock Eastern. And then we're going to do meet and greets, we're going to do music, we're going to have a good time and demand that next time we have free and fair elections that Hillary Clinton not take big donor money. So that's on 37th Street and 11th Avenue. And in order to get updates as we go along, go to tytnetwork.com/get-updates. And if that location changes at all, probably if it does, it'll be because of police presence. If it does, we will text you, okay? So if you're in New York, and I know a lot of you are, make sure that you sign up for tytnetwork.com/get-updates.
Is that near Hudson Yards Park?
That's the thing that never happened, right?
No, it was there on the map.
Oh, okay, all right. And look, everybody share away, okay? We got to have everybody sharing here. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, you know how to share on Facebook, obviously, retweet on Twitter. And on YouTube, click the share button. You'll see how to share it on Facebook and Twitter. And you can also embed. You can send the link to your family and friends. Let's get this to be as large as possible. And look, some of you have written some great stuff. Real quick, Marble Rivera wrote in, without a doubt, this day has been very energetic and informative, thanks to Young Turks. And thank you for saying that, but that's exactly why it's insane. I'm maybe the most biased man in America in this regard. Insane to watch it anywhere but here, because why would you rather have it be drier?
Yeah.
Right? Where you have the same facts. In fact, you'll have more facts, because we can pull from all of the other news stations, and we will.
Yeah.
Once the poll results start coming in, which, by the way, the first one from Indiana comes in 27 minutes. Okay, we will have it as soon as the first other news organization has it. No, honestly. But that's funny. It is funny, but it actually gives us a huge advantage. ABC doesn't have it. They know NBC has it. They're like, we can't say it, it's NBC. We can't say it, it's NBC.
Yeah,
we can tell you. We can give you the full context.
And just for the record, I think mostly going to be looking at the New York Times. They were fantastic during the primaries and quick. And
But we will be looking at all of it.
And just from the hours where I haven't been on, but I've been watching, when we have a day where we have all of us, obviously, some of the most common faces, and we have Jimmy and Steve and Brian and Aida and Kyle and Nomi and all these people like Sam and everything, that should be us more commonly in the future. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I
have this
love it. I love
community
when
that
we
we
all
need
come
to-
together.
yeah.
And then you've got tweets like this. Joanne Orzachowski. Oh, I think I did that okay, Joanne. Proud TYT member, thank you for streaming live for 12 hours straight today. The only election coverage worth watching. Hashtag I voted. Hashtag nasty woman.
Ooh.
I love it, Joanne. I love it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to give you as much as we can. You know our issues with resources. So that's why sometimes we got to hold our powder dry for big days like Election Day. Thank you for being with us. But you can make our powder wetter. Hey, how you doing, Chris?
this was Pete Rose kept doing this during the.
Oh, Pete Rose?
Yeah.
I thought you were going for the Chris Christie look.
A little bit.
Make our powder drier. No, wetter. This is really awkward.
What?
Yeah.
TYT.
Hashtag get us wet by becoming a member today.
tytnetwork.com/join. No, not moist. Join.
Okay.
Let's move away from
Okay, so
Now, back to dry Senate
I'm going to
races.
move through these faster. Cut me off when you want to. Some of the races that are most likely going to end in one way or the other. Illinois is the most likely to go for the Democrats right now, with Tammy Duckworth at about a 97% chance of winning that race. Now,
it should be Mark Kirk. He never should have had the seat in the first place. That's a Democratic seat. Should always be. Yeah.
Exactly, and he made the bad decision of, in one of their debates, he mocked her heritage. He gave a great apology afterward, but the damage by then was already done. And in most recent polls, she's up by 14 or 18 points. And it had been close before then to some extent.
What had he mocked?
He mocked her heritage.
Oh, her heritage. I thought
not her
something
hair.
about her hair. I'm
No,
like,
he might have said something about her
that
hair.
usually works really well for Republicans during
So
this
she
election.
talked about how her ancestors had served in the U.S. military
Since Washington.
since George Washington, but half of her family is white, the other half is Asian, right?
Thai,
yeah.
yes.
And
Thank
so, but he doesn't realize half her family is white, so he's like, yeah, I'm sure it goes back to George Washington.
Yeah, they
Right.
came over from
And
Thailand to fight for Washington.
Yeah. Like, oh,
You idiot.
schmuck.
You idiot.
Right.
Okay.
It's surprising that hurt him as much
Yeah.
as it did.
By the way,
Well, no, it's Illinois. That's why. That's a very blue state. That's
Yeah.
why, as Ben pointed out, he never should have the seat in the first place.
yeah. Also, this is an example of why politicians almost never go off script, because things like that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, although
okay.
he was headed for a loss anyway, but yes.
Yeah, probably, but it accelerated after that. Now, Marco Rubio, who said that he wasn't going to run again, then decided, oh, I like being on TV, and I want to run again for the presidency in the future, is going up against Patrick Murphy.
I respect that.
It is nice to be on TV. So he is now at about an 89.3% chance of defeating Patrick Murphy, which a lot of people called when Patrick Murphy won the primary. Because for weeks now, every poll has been pro-Rubio, from +1 all the way up to +11.
Although Rubio, for whatever it's worth, when Rubio was compared to Grayson, he had an even bigger lead. I mean, maybe Grayson would have run a better race, but Rubio coming back into the race tilted the race toward the Republicans.
Yeah. So, look, Grayson got murdered on the whole family brouhaha, right? Let alone the hedge fund stuff, right? So at that point, in his race against Patrick Murphy turned out to be not close at all. Now, to what degree that's true, not true, hatchet job, I don't know. I don't want to get into it, right? I don't want to rehash that. But that's because that's not important. What's important is the macro picture, the overall picture. And the overall picture is, in the state of Florida, and this is a larger problem for the Democrats overall that we're going to discuss at the end, is that they keep running pro-establishment candidates thinking that this is a genius move.
Yeah.
But they're milquetoast. It's not an interesting move. You'd be 1,000 times better off running a populist candidate. It definitely doesn't have to be Grayson, but it has to be someone who's saying, hey, I'm going to look out for you. Instead, they keep on going to, I'm also going to look out for corporate interests, but not quite as much as the Republican. And they keep losing because that's the inevitable result of that strategy.
And super fast, when we were in Miami for the Fusion show, we talked briefly about this, and I said, I know sometimes you just support the party, but this is a guy who came in, he was your senator, did jack shit for 6 years, did nothing. He and his supporters, his surrogates in the media, could not come up with an accomplishment of his. Ran for president as soon as he could, said he wouldn't run again, and then once he wasn't going to be president, decides, I guess I'll be senator again. And for the people of Florida to be like, yes, he's our public servant. I want him. No, man, he's not your guy. He's not going to do any more this time around. He's still, once again, just sitting and waiting for the next chance that he can run to be the Republican nominee.
Yeah, it's a shame. Democrats pulled money out of Florida, I think, too early. There were a lot of mainstream Democrats who thought that the party abandoned Murphy much too quickly, and then they put money back in when they saw a poll came out. It was only down by 3 or 4 points, but it's probably too late. Unlike if Clinton wins North Carolina, as we said, there's a good chance that she carries Ross with her, especially if she wins by 3 or 4 points. Even if Clinton wins Florida by 3, 4, 5 points, it's unlikely that she'll carry Patrick Murphy with her.
Yeah. And Rubio was beatable. But last thing on this is that his main advantage is not that he was so great for the state of Florida, as John points out, or anything like that. Name recognition. And so that gives you a sense of why the hill that Bernie Sanders had to climb was so difficult. Because everyone in the country knows who Hillary Clinton is. She has like nearly 99% name recognition. Bernie Sanders had like 1% name recognition when he started. So that is a Herculean task. And he almost did it, right? So, and that's why a guy like Marco Rubio, even though he's a do-nothing, clear, obvious, slimy politician, is going to win easily because he already has name recognition. It is deeply frustrating.
Now, we do have some competitive races as well. I'm pretending like we're just bopping back and forth. There's no rhyme or reason, but we're going to New Hampshire, which is going to be one of the most watched states for the presidential race. Also, for the Senate, where you have Kelly Ayotte, a Republican, going against Maggie Hassan. Currently, Hassan has about a 53% chance of winning. The polls have bounced back and forth, with either leading by 2 or 3, almost cyclically at this point. Ayotte, throughout the past couple of months, has had you've seen this in a couple of races, actually. She's had to very carefully not support Donald Trump while not speaking out against him too much. She was more against him than some of the candidates we're going to talk about. But Trump being the nominee has made her chances significantly lower than they would have otherwise been.
Absolutely. And I think that she wasn't so careful. I think that, her flip-flopping was very, very transparent, and I think that a lot of voters got turned off by that, especially when it came to the
probably right.
question of whether or not she thought that Donald Trump was a good role model. Like, within the same debate, she flip-flopped on that issue, and I think it did hurt her.
Yeah, a huge problem. Just answer that. Just say no.
Yeah,
like,
just say
so
no.
Huge help if she'd just said no during that, because then it wouldn't have been perceived. Not so much as I wouldn't necessarily call it flip-flopping, but calculating, which is almost worse.
Yeah.
And she seemed, and it's clearly hurt her. She's the candidate sort of most hurt, maybe Joe Heck, from being tied to Trump.
I would say, I predict that later tonight, Joe Heck will have been hurt more percentage-wise, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, first of all, Democratic candidate pronounced her name Maggie Hassan in order to avoid any association with Hassan Piker.
Understandable. She's got to
yes.
carefully toe that line.
Yeah, she doesn't want to get trying to stuck answering questions about are you pro or against bro tip. So, anyway, in all seriousness, I can't stand Kelly Ayotte. The reason for that is because she's got such a pleasant face. So the mainstream media that focuses on nothing but trivialities and looks at the surface, they're like, Kelly Ayotte, what a wonderfully moderate senator from New Hampshire. No, she is among the top 3 warmongers in the United States Senate. She replaced Joe Lieberman in the triumvirate of Lindsey Graham and John McCain, and now it's Kelly Ayotte. There isn't a war that Kelly Ayotte hasn't fallen head over heels in love with. So, for those of you saying, oh, Hillary Clinton is too much of a warmonger, I hear you, brother. Yeah. Wait till you see Kelly Ayotte.
Yeah.
So she's in that, she's right. If they have the NASCAR, kind of jackets and they had their donors as they do, at least NASCAR is super honest about it. That's what I like about it, right? Most of her buttons would be defense contractors.
Yeah.
So some people are, more oil companies. Some people are more pharmaceuticals. Kelly Ayotte is like, defense contractors, I'm right here, going once, going twice. So I would love for her to lose. And in New Hampshire, come on, New Hampshire, you could do better than that. Yeah. And right now, luckily, the last set of polls in New Hampshire showed a big trend in Hillary Clinton's direction before the right after the heart attack of a couple going in Trump's direction.
There hasn't been a lot of last-minute Senate polling, which makes it harder to know if it's likely to also help out.
Kelly Ayotte is enormously beatable. If the Democrats can't beat her, that's really sad.
Now, if we fly over to Missouri, Roy Blunt, the Republican, is about a 57% chance of beating Jason Kander. Jason Kander, I think we showed when it came out, he had one of the most memorable political ads of this cycle, where he's assembling a rifle from his time in the military, I believe he's a Marine, while blindfolded. What's interesting about this race is that he has a very good chance of winning Kander. I mean, it's likely to go with Roy Blunt, but he could win in a state that in the presidential race that's Trump land right there. And so you have a huge gap between the Senate and the presidential race.
Missouri has always had a peculiar tendency to elect, especially lately, Republicans in presidential elections, but consistently elects governors to the Senate, Claire McCaskill, governors to the Democrats to the Senate and Democrats to the governorship, statewide offices. Frequently.
Connecticut's like the opposite.
Yeah, they mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though, because Trump is ahead in Missouri by, anywhere from 8 to 15 points.
Exactly.
It's not close.
Yeah. So even with that history, it's surprising that he's that close. Now, here's my theory as to why. Okay. So there's 2 parts of this, right? Now, knucklehead. It's not because they're stupid. I got to stop saying that. They get the same donations, right? So they think, okay, let's run conservative people in conservative states. Now, on the surface, you might think, oh, that's smart, right? Okay, you can't be as liberal in a state like Missouri as you would in a state like Rhode Island. Okay, all right, I get it. But liberal or conservative, how? And they say, let's run economically conservative people that are going to be pro-corporate, pro-business, pro-tax cuts, all that stuff, right? But people don't want that. They don't want it from the Republicans. They don't want it from the Democrats, as Trump has shown in some ways the rise of populism, et cetera. In this case of Kander, they did the opposite. So, and he did 2 things that are really interesting. One, by doing that gun ad, he showed, no, I'm more conservative socially. Now, I might not like that, okay? There's a twist to it, but I might not like that. But that is a more effective strategy in a red state, to be socially conservative rather than economically conservative.
Also, it stops you from immediately being sunk with this guy's going to take away your guns.
That's right.
Nobody buys that after that ad.
And then he did a second thing within that same ad that was so strong. And then after he did that, he said, I'm for background checks because we've got to have some sort of sanity here. Obviously, I know how to handle a weapon, right? So, see, that's smart because you go, hey, I love my gun. Here it is. Mm-hmm. You think you can put it together better than I can, right? I served, I did all this. But guys, we got to be sane. And that's a strong politician. People love strong politicians. That's why he's got a decent shot at beating a guy he shouldn't even be in the race with.
Yeah.
So that's the right strategy.
I have a different theory as to why he's winning, but I'm going to need to see those photos again. So let's
let's put up.
Come on. Come on.
Come on.
Look, he looks like the Joker after he put his makeup on, Roy Blunt.
It's the Joker versus Domhnall Gleeson.
Right. It's the Joker versus a human being who's identifiable. And and look at that. He's
With
like
the young
literally
Turk style.
Roy
Not
Blunt.
too excited, but identifiable for sure.
Sure, right. It's okay. It's a serious job.
Yeah.
Serious man for a serious job. Roy Blunt went to when Ben Nelson left the Senate. Roy Blunt said, "Before you go, Ben, tell me who does your hair." Because I want that guy.
It always comes back to that.
Look at it. It's the fakest dude in the history. The smile's fake. The hair's fake. The eyebrows are fake. Everything is fake about that guy. Nothing could be more inauthentic about Roy Blunt. I am so excited about the possibility of Roy Blunt losing that it will offset little things like Marco Rubio winning.
Interesting.
It would just be so delightful to have Roy Blunt lose because it really, as Cenk mentioned, about a month ago, it sort of seemed to, might have the timing wrong there. It kind of came out of nowhere where you were like, what's happening in Missouri? What's this in Missouri? Which makes up for, which you'll mention, just sort of massive Democratic underperformances in Ohio, where 9 months ago thought it was a great chance to pick up.
Okay, now we got to really speed up through the rest.
Okay. I think one of the most interesting ones, we alluded to this earlier. So if you go to Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto against Joe Heck, the Republican. The Democrats had about a 60% chance of winning. Recent polls generally have her at +2, +3, although there are a few going in the Republicans' direction as well. Now, what's interesting is back in 2012, Dean Heller, the Republican, won by 1 point, even though Obama won the state by 6, which means that even if Hillary Clinton does overperform, if this one anecdote says anything, we don't know for sure that the Democrat will win the Senate. But I do think this is perhaps going to be the senator who is most hurt by Donald Trump. That one, he stimulates young Nevadans and Hispanic voters to go out and vote against him. Also, the lack of a ground game when it's 2 points basically that separates them could be all it takes for him to be defeated. And if the early voting evidence that we have is any indication, it might be a bad night for Joe.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Sorry, look, there are a lot of predictions about what's going to happen in battleground states like Nevada and Florida, but we'll see how it all plays out. I am delighted by the idea that Latinos will not only defeat Republican Senate candidates, but also defeat Trump, right?
Yeah.
That they're so angry with the type of rhetoric that he's used against them that they are now, motivated enough to go to the polls and speak out. We'll see.
So there's a lot of evidence that there is evidence. Mm-hmm. Let's not categorize it. There is evidence that Latinos were underpolled because the Latinos who do get polled are English speaking, and that the non-English speaking Latinos are by very nature of telephone polling underpolled.
Yeah.
The evidence in Nevada was anecdotal, except of who was in line. But we know the lines were significant, and we know Democrats turned out at a much greater rate. The anecdotal evidence was in Clark County, all those hotel workers, many of them Latino, voting late at night, from seasoned political observers there, like John Ralston, were that, hey, this seems to be a big Latino turnout. I think it helps that here's some nonsense punditry based on nothing. I like the fact that every state where there's a woman running as the Democrat, it just feels like might help a little. You're like, hey, I'm voting for a woman for president. I'm going to vote for a woman here in the Senate. So I like that. I like her name. I like her last name. And I just feel like, and I don't mean this pejoratively at all, but I mean, I feel like there is some chance that if Democrats are at 50-50 or 51-49 in the Senate and Hillary Clinton has been elected president, that one of the main storylines tomorrow is that literally every right-thinking person in this country, when they see a person of Latino origin or descent, needs to say a gigantic gracias. That may be the story that, my God, here's who put us over the top. Here's who came through. Because a lot of people who don't vote, I am just imagining, I don't know it, are saying, this time, I know evil and I know hate and I know discrimination when I see it, and I'm going to stop this guy.
Well, ironically, Latinos might have built a wall between Trump and the White House.
That's ironic because
And
he
Joe
wants to
Heck's
build a
going to
wall.
pay for it.
No. Trump now complaining that he spent $100 million on this campaign and might lose and it might be all wasted.
Yeah.
Turns out Latinos built a wall between Trump and the White House and Trump paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, he didn't actually pay $100 million. He's just trying to make you think he spent more than he did. So really fast, if we go to Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey, the Republican, against Katie McGinty, the Democrat. Katie McGinty at a little bit over 60% odds of winning. All of the recent polls over the past few weeks, a couple dozen polls have her up by 1 to 4. Obviously, this is a state that we know that Hillary Clinton is up by 3 points, maybe 4 points, which is less than a month ago. We also know there's no early voting, so we don't have this sort of Nevadan evidence to go on. If Hillary Clinton underperforms or if she overperforms, that's going to have consequences for Katie McGinty.
Yep.
Pat Toomey used to be considered wildly right-wing, 10, 12 years ago, and thought we can't put an insane right-winger like that. Now he's among the more moderate of the Republicans, and his position has not changed one iota.
Yeah.
It's because the Republican Party has become that insanely right-wing.
Yeah. Bit of good news, perhaps, if we go to Wisconsin. It looks like Russ Feingold has a slightly better than 80% chance of beating Ron Johnson.
Damn.
Although, so the polls generally have Feingold up by 2 points, by 3 points. The last poll, I believe, that was released by Marquette University, which is considered to be a very reputable pollster for polling Wisconsin, had it at a tie.
I'm
So that's
worried about
horrifying.
that.
But that, I believe, was before the Comey second bombshell.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So that's going to be a close
Ron
one.
Johnson has no business being in the United States Senate in any way.
Especially for Wisconsin.
Forget the greatness of Russ Feingold. Ron Johnson is an embarrassment as a United States senator. He's an incredibly wealthy guy, self-funded his campaign, and still manages to be beholden to special interests. And Russ Feingold needs to get into the Senate if he's going to be the 2020 Democratic nominee for president.
That's a good point.
I wonder if that affected how much they helped him.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, he endorsed Hillary Clinton, so it's not like he was.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Come on,
sure.
Wisconsin. I'm really, really worried about that race. And
It would hurt.
It would hurt real bad if Feingold
it's a
lost.
sign because
then you'd have, if Feingold wins, then you have Sanders, Warren,
And Feingold.
Feingold. That is three unassailable liberals, let alone Sherrod Brown and Merkley in Oregon. Now we're getting somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But if you knock out Feingold, his career is done, and that's a damn
and we
shame.
hope Kamala Harris. So yeah, totally. And it's also like if Feingold doesn't win, it's a suggestion that this was a very bad night because even though the numbers got closer, the projections again by like 538, their understanding of the state, let alone everybody else who's projecting this. It's just this is a race Democrats should win. It should pick up, and Feingold should win. So
yeah, and remember, I should have said this when we were talking about how important it is that they take over the Senate. Obviously, having those people in the Senate is great. Having control of it makes Bernie Sanders the head of the Senate Finance Committee, puts him basically in charge of the federal budget on the Senate side. Incredibly important.
You might get a ninth Supreme Court justice sometime in the next 4 years.
Yes, exactly. And then finally, if we go to Indiana, Evan Bayh against Todd Young.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I believe that's on Evan Bayh's at a 31.5% chance.
Down from like 75 3
exactly.
weeks ago. I mean, nobody has screwed up an election more than Evan Bayh. But Evan Bayh, I shouldn't be too critical. We have something in common. We've both spent as much time in Indiana. I go about as often as Evan Bayh.
Yeah, Evan Bayh, of course, became a lobbyist immediately thereafter, leaving the Senate.
The most recent poll, by the way, I don't remember how reputable it was, but the most recent poll has Todd Young up by 12. That's probably not.
Evan Bayh screams smarmy fake politician. with Wall Street's best interest in mind, and that is what he is.
And I feel like there was also one at 6. He's lost it. I think that race is over. And he was up 18 points. 18 points. Democrats thought they'd guaranteed a pickup when they were able to recruit Bai to come back and run for his old seat. But he has a condo in Indianapolis, and he kept going to Indianapolis, and he'd stay in a hotel and bill taxpayers. It's just such stupid.
He's so unbearable.
Yeah.
And he's beloved by the establishment, beloved by Morning Joe,
yeah.
and that's exactly why he's going to
Yeah.
lose. Okay, all right, we got to go. The main show, the regular show, coming up, and Michael Schur just sent me a note. He has been allowed into the building. He is at Trump headquarters. So we're going to have Jordan Chariton at Hillary Clinton headquarters, Michael Schur at Trump headquarters. Oh my God, if Trump loses and Michael's there, he's going to get priceless footage. Okay, so we'll be right back. Stay right where you are.
I'm Jim.